AP Computer Science A, Unit 5, P5I preview, and a little help to get you going. So hopefully you've read through it yourself. I'm going to kind of read through it and point some things out, and then we'll try and create some of the supporting code that you need to make it work, because I do want to make a working version of this. Okay, so consider a software system that models a horse barn. Classes that represent horses implement the following interface. So this is an interface, horse interface, and it has some abstract methods in it. Even though they don't say public, they are public by default. Even though they don't say abstract, they are abstract by default. And that's it. So we could type that up. We could add a little more detail. A horse barn consists of n-numbered spaces. Each space can hold at most one horse. Spaces are indexed starting at 0, convenient, until n-1. No two horses in the barn have the same name. The declaration of the horse barn class is shown below. We will write two unrelated methods of the horse barn class. So just so you know that you don't need one to do the other. A lot of times part A, the method for part A might be needed for part B, but this time they're unrelated. So here's some of the horse barn class. As private as this variable, an array of horse objects called spaces. It says a null value indicates an empty space, so we do need to worry about null in this program. Then there's a method that you can do part A called find horse space. Returns the index of the space that contains a horse with a specified name, precondition, no two horses in the barn have the same name. Param name, that's a parameter, that's an argument, the name of the horse that you want to find, and returns the index of the space containing the horse with the specified name, -1 if no horse with that name exists in the barn. This one's going to be pretty straightforward method. You're going to search through an array to find something that matches it and then return the position. That's it. Part B is a little harder. Part B says consolidates, it's called consolidate. It consolidates the barn by moving horses so that the horses are in adjacent spaces starting at index 0, no empty spaces between any two horses. The order of the horses is the same before the consolidation. So that means what it does, it sounds pretty simple, but all the empty spaces get moved to the end of the barn, and all the horses that are there get moved to the front of the barn, and they should be in the same order. It sounds simple. It's not as simple as it sounds. Now, part A, it goes right here. It says write horse barn method, find horse space. The method returns the index. So they give an example. There's empty horse stall, so you got to worry about null. They give you some examples that we could put in let's put these in our driver, okay? Let's create the horse barn with these horses in it in the driver. Let's run find horse space on these guys and make sure at least it does this, okay? So if they look for trigger, it returns 0 because trigger's in the 0 spot. If they look for silver, it returns 2 because it's in the 2 spot. If it looks for Coco, it returns -1 because there is no horse named Coco. So you're going to do that method. Part B, write the horse barn method, consolidate. So there's some empty stalls here. Now on your driver, I want you to at least do this example. If there are, you want to make sure that your method works for any number of empty spaces in a row, okay? And that's kind of one of the things that makes it hard, but all the empty spaces get moved to the end. The idea is pretty simple, but so let's see if we can together write some of the code to help just support this. I'm not going to write the code for those two methods. So I'm going to go to BlueJ. I'm going to create a new project. This one is not related at all to the other ones. Okay, let's see. I'm going to try and find my folder. I guess I'll do it in here. Unit 5. I'm going to call it P5I project. Okay. So we can create a new class. So we could just start with the interface they gave us, horse. Now, by the way, you'll notice down here there is interface, but we can do this on our own. I don't want to use that pre-code. So I'm going to get rid of all this stuff. And we're going to say, okay, so public interface horse end interface horse. I mean, they already have some stuff there. This is one way to do. It's at return the horse's name. This is stuff that helps with the the documentation. If you do it like this, then this is stuff that ends up in the documentation for a method. If you go look. So the horses have a weight. Okay. So now I think I'm going to go ahead and add a little more detail and not take advantage of the shortcuts that Java allows. I'm going to go ahead and type in public, which you don't have to. It'll be an abstract. I think for now, let's do that. Let's take that approach. So we have a get name method. It has to have get name and public abstract int get weight. These are just getters, but I guess we're going to need to use them, right? Or need to assume that these are things that we just need to know. Like, okay, any kind of horse, even though we can't make specifically a horse, but any subclass, any object that implements the interface horse will have these methods in it, and they will be implemented. You're not even responsible for them, but since we're going to make our own working version, then we will be responsible for them. So I guess that's the next thing we could do. So I'm going to compile this. Okay. I'm going to go back here. So we have an interface horse. Let's create a class that is some kind of horse. So this isn't even described in it. I'm going to call it a racehorse. It doesn't even matter what kind of horse it is. What kind of horse do you want to make? You can make any kind of horse you want. I'm going to make it a racehorse. It's a type of horse, though. Any kind of horse. So I'm going to get rid of this code. And I'm going to say public class racehorse. And it needs to implement the interface horse. So we got to put that code in there for this to work. So end class racehorse. All right, so we got to do all the normal class stuff: Providence variables, constructors, toString, all that stuff to make this work. So we're going to say private string name. Like we already know that it should have a name. We already know that it should have a weight. So, I mean, that's pretty predictable. And we know what types of, the name is a string, the weight's an integer. Public racehorse. We could make a 0-arg version. I don't really know if that's helpful in this one. But whatever, we could say this. We could use the this dot way of doing it. Null objects. 0 for numbers. End 0-arg constructor. Now, since my multi-arg constructors would be very similar to that, I'm going to go and just copy and paste this. Okay. So let's do the multi-arg, which is probably more likely what we're going to use because they don't have any horses without names and stuff in their examples. So it's going to be string name, or you can do initial name, but I'm going to take advantage of the this dot thing. And int weight. And so it's going to be this dot name equals name. And weight equals weight. Okay, so we got our constructors done. Okay. Now, the getters, like we definitely need getters here that are implemented. Public string. This was in the, if we look back at the interface, the interface has string get name, int get weight. Okay, so they're public and abstract. If you look in here, they're public and abstract, but we're not going to make them abstract. We're gonna do it public. So, public string get name. So it's a 0-arg method. It's really a standard getter. I mean, this one's not that complicated. Return name. So they didn't give you any of this, but you can assume this is already done. In method get name. And then we need public int get weight, standard getter, turn weight. All right, so we got those. And then I think just to make this work well, we should do a toString so that we can run it and try it. So toString string toString end method toString. Okay. So we should just return its name and weight, right? Return. I mean, I don't know. I think if we looked at the example they showed, it had name and weight underneath it. I don't know. We could do that. Okay, so we could say name plus. We could do a new line. And then weight. Okay, that should do it. Okay, 1 second. Just looking something up. /team. Okay. Okay, so that looks good. So we got that done. So I think we're good on this racehorse, that because we can't make horses. That's an interface. Oh, you know what we forgot to do? Or I don't know. Compile, implement horse. It doesn't like that. Public class racehorse. Implements. Oh man, I forgot S. And then didn't even really help me. I figured it out though. Okay, implements. All right, so now we have that nice line like we expect, the dashed line with the open arrow. Okay, so now the next thing we need to do is do the HorseBarn. So, and this is the one that you're going to put some of the code in. But I mean, I guess it could help you get it set up before then. A HorseBarn has racehorses in it. And then we're going to create a driver. So public class HorseBarn. End class HorseBarn. Okay. So we need Providence variables. Now, some of these things were given to us. If we look back at the assignment, right there's a bunch of it. It's missing the constructors and a toString and things like that. So we'll add that stuff, but we're going to put all this stuff in there. So here we go. It had private instance variable horse array. We call it horses. Oh, spaces. And then we need a constructor, public horse. I mean, we could do zero-arg, multi-arg. Let's do multi-arg. So we need an array of horses. We expect that. We call it spaces. So we're going to do that in the driver. I'm not going to bother making the zero-arg. So we could say this dot spaces equals spaces. Pretty simple constructor. Okay, so we got that. And then you're going to need to do this public. This is the method that you guys get to do. So, and there's not a whole lot here. The header's already there for you. So, I mean, I could type it for you. Public int find horse space string name. So you give it a name and it should find that horse. But this is to be implemented in part A. So I'm not going to do that for you. End method find horse space. That should be the more straightforward one. And the other one is public void consolidate. Zero-arg, its job doesn't, you don't need to tell it just moves all the empty spaces to the back. So /* to be implemented in part E. Now we should put a toString in here. So we'll print out a nice friendly version of it. Public string toString. And we probably need to create a variable to hold the string as we create it, because we're going to have to go use a for loop to go through the whole array and add on to it as we go. So in method toString. Okay, so all right, so let's create a nice toString here. So we could say string output equals, we need to give it something because we're going to add on to it. So if you just leave it string output and you don't initialize it, it's going to be null. And you can't add to null. So we need to make it just a blank string right now. So for, you guys should be good at this. I think we could probably do even a for each loop here. Index equals 0. Index is less than spaces dot length x plus okay, so we're going to do results plus equals is a shortcut. So that'll add whatever's next to results, spaces, index, and then it'd be nice to have a new line between them, /n, and that should do it. And we just got to return it. Return output. Oh, I don't know why I put results. It should be output. Okay, so that should do it. That should help us make a working version. The only other thing I guess I could help you out with a little bit is to start making the driver. So I think that's good. Let's make sure that compiles. Oh, shoot. Public horse spaces. Invalid method declaration. Okay. Oh, it's not horse, it's HorseBarn. Oops. Okay. Okay. Oh. Well, yeah, it doesn't like that because it's supposed to have a return and it doesn't yet. So that's not going to work yet. Okay. So the driver, I mean, they pretty much, I would just use the examples that they have. So we're not going to be able to compile that yet. That's fine. So we got HorseBarn. And so we need a HorseBarn driver. HorseBarn driver. Open this up. Get rid of this. Public class HorseBarn driver. End class HorseBarn. Okay, so we need a public static void main string args. And method main. Okay. All right, so we got our main method. So we just got to create some stuff. So we're gonna want to create the HorseBarn, and we have a couple versions of HorseBarns, I guess we want to create. So we need to create an array of horses to put in there first. So we could create a horse array. Call it barn1 equals new. We call it spaces 1 new horse. The size, let's just make the size they have. It's size 7. Okay, and then we could say spaces 1, 0 equals new racehorse. There are no horses, racehorse. And the argument should be the name and the weight. So I'm going to call it trigger. Okay, we got to put in quotations. Trigger. And trigger's weight is 1340. So I'm just copying what's in the example. Now, the second one is null, so we just say equals null. If you look at the assignment, I'll show you what I'm looking at. So I'm just trying to recreate this example right here on part A. And then I'll put this stuff in there. So I'm trying to create this array, and I got to create the horse barn, and then I'm going to call these methods printout system.out.println this stuff. So that's what I'm working on now. So I'm just trying to, I'll do this first one. Part B, I'll let you guys do it because I think you guys should be good at that point. Similar. So next one was silver and 1210. Next one is lady, and lady is 1575. And the next one is null. You probably should be checking for nulls in your methods. On a null pointer exception. Patches. And Duke. All right, so we got that. Now we need to create horse barn. So horse barn, I'm going to call it barn 1 equals new horse barn. So we got to use the constructor that we typed up, and we're going to give it an array of horses. So that should create it. What might be good to do is to print it out and make sure that it got created correctly. So you could say for int, and we could do a for each loop, right? Horse h barn 1 so we could say, all right, system.out. Oh, actually, no, we don't even need to do this because the horse barn has its own toString. So we could just say system.out.println and put barn 1 in there. And it should work. Now I'm going to put another system.out to just have an empty line between this and the next thing. So we've done that. So what we're going to do now is do system.out.println. I'm going to do the examples they have. They called it sweet home. I guess I'll go back and change my sweet home dot find horse space trigger. And this will print out the result of that. So I'm going to go back and call it sweet home just to make it match a little nicer. Okay, so you can do that. You can do the next 2 lines of code that are there just to confirm it. Then for part B, we need a slightly different horse barn for sure to like really adequately check it. We want to make sure we check the version where there's 2 or more empty spaces in a row. So you'll create a new horse barn. You could probably copy and paste a lot of that code. I mean, it looks like pretty much the same horse barn, except they take lady out. Okay. And then you're going to run consolidate on it. So if we go back to the driver, we could probably just simply, okay, you guys got to put a couple more lines of code here. But then we could say, well, we're going to have to say spaces. We're going to have to recreate the horse barn, but we could use spaces 1 and just change lady, which is in spot 3, to null. So you got to do some more work there. And then and then probably put one extra system.out.println just to space things out. I don't want everything from one result to the next to all just merge together. So let's put some extra spaces in between. So if we do that, and then we could recreate the horse barn. We could say sweet home equals new horse barn spaces 1, or we could call it something else if you want to keep your other horse barn. So you create it, and then all we got to do is do sweet home dot consolidate, and it should consolidate it, but it's not going to print anything out. So then after that, what we should do is do system.out.println and print out the horse barn again, just to confirm that it actually moved everything over like it was supposed to. So that's pretty much, I mean, I've done almost all of it for you. I left a couple lines right here undone here, but that's the driver. And it's not going to compile because it's relying on methods that haven't been defined yet. I do need an extra parenthesis there. And so it has an issue here. It says, let's see what that error is. Just make sure I haven't left you guys any issues. Okay, so it says no suitable constructor found for racehorse. New racehorse. Oh, I forgot to give it its weight. So it's complaining because it says, hey, there's no constructor that only takes a string. You need to give it the weight also. All the constructor has, Now it says it can't find barn. Oh, because I forgot to change that to sweet home. It says that variable doesn't exist. At some point, missing return statement. Yeah, so now it's coming back to this one and saying, hey, we can't run it because there is no return statement on that. So I think we should be good now on our driver. You just have to, you could comment these out until you get it working. So you could say, you know what, let's comment this stuff out until we get part B working. In fact, so we could do that. We can comment that out until after we get part B working. We could comment this stuff out until we get part A working. And like I said, there's a couple more lines of code that you guys should have there. And it's all described in the problem. Okay, so we comment that one out too. Now I think it should compile. Yeah. Well, what you would have to do is you'd have to comment this whole thing out for this to work. I'm just gonna comment this out for a second. You know what we could do actually? Well, no, I'm not gonna do that. Okay. So I'm gonna comment this one out too. You have to come back and comment it back in. It's not liking this. It's seeing this as the end of the comment. Okay, I'm gonna do something else. Here's the way we can get around this. We could just say, hey, it's supposed to return something. We could just say return 0, just as a temporary fix, so that it'll compile. Okay, so that compiles. This should compile now, hopefully. I'm just I want to test out my two-string and stuff, and just make sure I set it up right. And even down here, after we do this, what I would probably do is print this out before we do anything to it, just to make sure it looks right. And then put an extra line so that it looks nice. Okay, so it compiled. I think we could try and run it now. So we got a bunch of stuff. We got a bunch of lines coming in now. So that's the driver. It's class composition. You notice the arrows aren't closed on the ends. So that means the horse barn has horses, racehorses, and horse barns in it. So let's try the driver just to see if we had set it up good so far. So if we look at it, now it doesn't print out exactly the way they showed it, but trigger is 1340, and then we have null and silver, and then lady, and then null, and then patches, and then duke. So that looks good so far. So anyways, that's a lot of extra help to get you guys up and running, but now you have to do part A and part B yourself. Okay, so go part A is going to be pretty straightforward. Part B, there's some trickier issues. So